Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi, very well, thank you. Yeah,
Well, it is a joy to speak to you and a real privilege. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
pleasure, my pleasure.
First of all, congratulations on the honor from the festival, Toronto Jewish Film Festival, because I mean, well deserved, of course, but absolutely, absolutely, so thrilled for you as well.
It's very moving to me that some of my earlier work still has resonance, and that people can still find something meaningful in it. It matters a lot.
Solomon and Gaynor and Wondrous Oblivion are just wonderful films. They're just incredible pieces. But it is interesting that you say that these older films that are well, Solomon and Gaynor is almost 25 years old. Of course, Oblivion is now 20 years. They do absolutely still resonate. What is it to you that has made these stories uh, continue to connect?
Uh, well, partly they're both migration stories,
Mm.
and migration is still a huge issue. Uh, and then there are also stories about accepting difference, about living with difference and indeed celebrating difference. And I think, that's also a huge issue at the moment, a huge theme. And there are forces pulling in both directions. And my films are a force for the celebration uh, side of the story. And of course, some of the films that they are screening go back much earlier. They're 30 years and 35 years old. So, which puts me pretty old. Um, but but they also still work. And I guess those themes have always been important to me.
I'm glad to hear you say that because and yes, one of the things um, that I wonder just with looking at your career is I'm wondering what actually inspires you as a filmmaker because these are wonderful stories with wonderful characters.
Um, well, the first film I ever made was a kind of in my teens was a silent film comedy, kind of like a Keystone Cops chase movie. Um, so kind of full of the innocence and joy of those early silent movies. And I think I really like to work my way back to that. That would be my ambition, is to make a silent comedy again. So, uh, I think I like to think my movies have always had heart and and have always kind of tried to mix joy and tragedy and also a sense of something bigger than ourselves, a sense of um, something beyond us, which you could call divine or transcendent. Um, I think that's always been in my filmmaking, and also human. Humans talking to one another as humans, and that's at the root of it all. And then in a sense, that kind of transcendence comes out of just being human, being ourselves and being vulnerable and failing and messing up, all that. So that's what the films are about. That's what they have in common, I think.
That is a fascinating juxtaposition you say there because transcendence and humanity held up against one another and sort of the transcendence of it. Could you explore that a little more? Because I think that's such an interesting idea. Certainly there is a certain spirituality of the film, certainly, but they are grounded very much in the people, in the characters, and their flaws and failings at the same time.
Yeah, um, that's what I try to do. So it's great that that is how you describe it and how it works for you. Um, uh, it's very Jewish, actually. You know, there's something, because, you know, we're not very good on belief. You know, Jews don't have a kind of set of beliefs that you could say, but we're pretty good on trying to live a good life, you know, and so, and I think it's out of trying to live a decent life that magic and mystery um, and something you know above everyday life uh, can happen, can occur. Uh, so you know, I mean, the festival is obviously not showing my quote non-Jewish films, of which there are a few, but I think the same underlying theme is there, or the same underlying wish is there, um, to show fallible human beings, and to out of their fallibility comes something strong and enduring.
In connection with that, one of the things I was reading about you that I didn't know, um, did you take time off, take 10 years off to pursue your role as a psychologist? Is that correct?
Yeah, I was a psychotherapist for 25 years, uh, alongside of making films. So every so often I would take maternity leave and go and make a movie. And I managed to kind of hold the two things together with some difficulty. Um, and yeah, a few years ago, I had to give up the psychotherapy. It was too much to kind of try to keep doing both. Um, but yeah, uh, I still watch that series, kind of couples therapy. Do you ever watch that series? And
I haven't. I haven't seen that.
I get reminded how to do that job, you know, which gradually drifts away from me. But there's something that two of them have in common, which is you're kind of you're unpeeling the layers and you're looking for the heart of the story. And in a movie, what you want is the character to, you know, your lead character or your lead characters to gradually reveal themselves, to unpeel themselves, and to transcend who they were and learn something. And that's in a way what you're doing as a psychotherapist, helping somebody else to make that journey. So they have something in common. They kind of they fed one another. For me, they were a good balance. And also the psychotherapy keeps you grounded, you know, because you're just the asshole in the other chair.
Well, I had wondered that because it is, we hear with other filmmakers, oh, I really want to delve into the psychology of man with this particular script and these characters, but you have this unique experience where you're actually doing both, and you've already spoken to it a little bit. There must be a connection within the two as you're creating your own stories, uh,
Yeah.
to hear so many of other people.
And the other thing is, of course, what it helps is working with actors. You know, I mean, I love working with actors, and there's something about uh, helping them or allowing them or giving them a space to go deeper in what they're doing. Uh, that's very satisfying, but also draws on my experience as a psychotherapist.
When you're working with your actors, is that something that excites you? Is collaborating in that way and helping them to create the characters together?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a great job being a film director because you get all these fantastic creative people who want to bring something themselves to the script, you know, and I'm certainly not one of the directors that's going to tell everybody exactly what they're supposed to be doing. You know, the whole point of working with these creative people is that they can have an input, and that they're going to bring something that you haven't thought of, and that goes from the actors through to the designers, to the costume designer, to whoever, they're going to create something that you couldn't possibly do on your own. And that's the joy of it. It's a great job. Presumably you get a little bit of that, don't you? In terms of what you do.
No, not in the same way. I wish. I wish. I really do. I could see the incredible craft that's being created, and yet I'm the outsider. That's why I ask the questions. Um, One of the things I thought was so interesting about both films, I'm just focusing here on Solomon and Gaynor and Wondrous Oblivion, of course. Um, there seems to be a heavy emphasis on the idea of shame. Um, and I was just wondering what you think the power of shame is, and how do we overcome it?
That's great that you picked up on that. And I don't have a simple answer to your question. But yeah, we do live in a culture that makes us feel ashamed, and ashamed of being who we truly would like to be. And in both both films, you're right to see that shame is Solomon is ashamed of revealing his true identity. That that David is shamed by what he does in the film. But shame is really helpful as well, because shame is a driver of change, or can be a driver of change. I mean, to be stuck in shame is horrible. And people can be for many years, but to act on the shame is can be incredibly releasing and invigorating. So, and that journey from shame through to self-acceptance is a great journey for a movie. So many movies you find have that shape to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And in these particular stories as well, I mean, one of the things, we just piggybacking on what you're saying there, that shame seems to be placed on the external, like wherever, you talk about Solomon's fear to reveal himself is because of the pressures he's experiencing, and the same we see in Wondrous Oblivion, and these cultural pressures put upon them by older ideas or traditional views, that's such a struggle. I was wondering for you, do you think that history can be a hindrance towards our living in the present, or does it inform it?
Well, it can be both, can't
Mm.
it? It can be. I mean, I remember growing up Jewish, at the time that I was growing up, I was encouraged to, somehow the culture encouraged me to pass, that I could get away with pretending not to be Jewish. And I internalized that,
Mm.
I actually thought, I was sort of proud of, I can be whoever I want to be, I can enter this other world, and I can be, English middle class or whatever. And it took me a long time to realize that, that wasn't who I was, and it wasn't helping me, that idea that I could pass didn't help me. So I think I had to have my own little journey before I could give my characters their journeys. I do remember one teacher saying to us is that the reason that the Jews died in the Holocaust was their own fault, because they didn't fight back. And I internalized that, that went deep inside. And later, when I was making my documentary films about Jewishness, I made a Holocaust film, which is part of the festival. I kind of wanted to refute that
Hmm.
thing that I'd been told by my teacher, and sort of express some of my anger, I suppose, at what had been laid on me. So you're right. Yeah, these characters in these two movies are operating in a context. And both of the contexts are putting pressures on them that they have to grapple with. They either have to respond to or they have to accede to. That's the drama. And so, but Wondrous Oblivion is also a fun movie. It's not only about shame.
No, there's a lot of joy in it. They're they're very. That's one of the things I loved about these two films is holding them up against one another and watching them because I had not seen them and now I have. And whenever you watch two things, you can see the connections, but the experiences of them are so wildly different. Because Wondrous Oblivion has this youthful energy, whereas Solomon and Gaynor has this sort of more passionate like driving force behind it and a heavier tone. But they're both such wonderful stories.
Thank you, thank you. After I made Solomon and Gaynor, I wanted to make a film that my kids would enjoy. So I had to make a kind of film that was lighter in tone, kind of more child-oriented. So sometimes the reasons for these things are both mysterious and mundane. Kind of, so making a film for my kids is as good a reason as any to make the film. But you still bring your stuff into it, don't you? So yeah, my stuff is still in there.
For sure. And I mean, that's one of the things I love about it is that, like I said, there's this innocence of tone, and yet there's still we're still dealing with very serious issues at the same time, and it's such a unique blend and mixture. One of the things that I thought was fascinating too, again, holding both films up against one another, is that love breaks down barriers. Certainly within these two stories, there's these are key themes, but there's also somewhat of a cost as well to doing so, and love has not come easy. I was just wondering for you why that was such an essential building block of these particular films.
Wow. um, well, I'm with you there. Love doesn't come easy always, or the love that does come easy isn't always the love that lasts.
Mm,
Um, you bring whatever you have to a movie, and it works if you bring 100% of whatever you have to a movie. And love has always been a driving force for me. It's always been the thing that tops everything and makes everything else possible. So, and there are different kinds of love in these movies. There's a romantic love, and there's parental love, and there's friendship, a
mm.
love, friendship love, and they're all kind of explored, and they all have their place. Mm. My next couple of movies have got some more different kinds of love in, if I can get them off the ground.
Yeah, I've heard that you're working on a couple of films. Is there anything you can tell us about them?
Well, both scripts are done. One is a kind of story about older people, my now generation, um, dealing with aging and dealing with loss, but also very much alive and very much in the moment and very much, wanting to live their lives. So that's one story, and the other story is a Ukraine story as it happens, but this was Ukraine when I was a student, I did a trip to Odessa, which was where my grandparents came from. We drove through Eastern Europe. We had our guitars with us, and we drove to Odessa, and we drove through Russia, which was then the Soviet Union, which was then, very heavily policed. And while we were there, we were asked if we could play our guitars at this Socialist Youth Congress. We stayed at campsites. We met these people, and it turned out to be that we played our guitars in this football stadium. And so I've kind of made a movie that was based on that trip, which is a kind of rock and roll coming of age story. Because of course I was there to try and find my grandparents' family. And in meeting them, I came up against a kind of the Russian bureaucracy and the Russian state. So it's also a story about the KGB. So a nice mix of things that I think you'll enjoy.
That is an amazing description. So I really want to see that. That sounds phenomenal. Paul, honestly, I am so grateful for the chance to chat with you. Thank you so much for sparing the time. Again, congratulations on your recognition and your awards and your career. And looking forward to what's coming next.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for your perspicacity and having really watched the films and understood what I was trying to do. I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. That's humbling for me, so thank you. I wish you the best. Have a great day.
Thank you.